The small apartment on the edge of the orbiting station was quiet, except for the faint hum of the life support systems and the occasional rattle of the outer hull when the station shifted in its orbit. Human and alien coexisted in this sector with varying degrees of ease, but few humans had ever shared a living space with an alien from the Andari cluster. Yet here he was, living with Lyra, a visitor from a world with oceans of liquid, crystal and forests that glowed softly in ultraviolet light. He had expected culture shock, perhaps even awkward silences or miscommunications. But nothing could have prepared him for the moment when he had come back from a long shift on the engineering deck. He had been exhausted, every muscle in his body aching from hours spent rerouting power lines and repairing damaged conduits. His routine was simple: strip off the suit, shower, and collapse on the couch with a protein pack. What he hadn't expected was for Lyra to be sitting cross-legged on the opposite side of the room, her multifaceted eyes observing him in a way that made his stomach twist. It wasn't just curiosity. He realized that the moment he peeled away his uniform, revealing the pale human skin that had spent so many cycles under artificial lights rather than sun, Lyra's expression shifted subtly. There was a glint in her eyes, an intensity he couldn't immediately interpret. He froze mid-step, towel clutched in his hand. The air between them seemed to thicken. Lyra. He began, unsure what to say. His voice sounded strangled, clumsy even to him. He had lived with her for almost a month, had laughed with her over data logs, and shared midnight meals. But the simple act of being naked in the same room seemed to have dismantled every social protocol he knew. Lyra tilted her head, her elongated neck giving her an almost bird-like grace. Her lips parted slightly, and he noticed the subtle movement as she licked them. It wasn't a gesture he could decode instantly, not in human terms. On her world, the act was likely not tied to any human notion of propriety or shame. Perhaps it was recognition or appreciation, or merely a way her species expressed heightened attention. Still, the effect on him was immediate and visceral. He wrapped the towel around himself quickly, feeling heat rise to his ears. I didn't. I thought you were out, he stammered. Lyra's voice, when she spoke, was soft but firm. I returned earlier than expected. I did not intend to startle you. The way she said it, however, carried a curiosity that was far more intimate than the words implied. It was clear she had observed him fully, without hesitation, without looking away. Humans were conditioned to avert their eyes in these moments, to preserve modesty. Humans were conditioned to hide. He realized that this alien roommate of his did not share that conditioning. He sank onto the couch, towel still clutched around his waist, trying to calm the rapid beating of his heart. His mind raced through protocol, etiquette, and common sense, but none of it seemed to apply in this situation. Lyra remained where she was, calm and still, her gaze never faltering. It was as if she were studying him, not judging, not mocking, but simply taking in the full reality of human anatomy, of human form. Over the next few days, the incident lingered in his mind, shaping every interaction with subtle tension. Lyra didn't speak of it, nor did she act differently in a way he could pinpoint immediately. But there were moments when she walked past him in the narrow corridors of the station, when she leaned over the same console in the lab that he caught her watching him. A slight lift of her brow, a hint of a smile, or the fleeting flash of her tongue as if tasting the air around him. It was maddening and intriguing at the same time. He began to notice other aspects of her behavior that suggested she was attuned to human vulnerability in ways she didn't fully articulate. When he burned his hand on a conduit during a late-night repair, she immediately pressed a cooling gel onto the injury, her multi-fingered hands surprisingly gentle. When he missed a meal because of a long assignment, she brought him nutrient packs and placed them beside him, her eyes flickering briefly to his face as if gauging his mood. It was not concern in a human sense, but attentiveness acute, precise, and oddly personal. The turning point came during a weekend when the station's orbital rotation brought them into the shadow of a gas giant. They had finished maintenance on a sensor array together, their suits dusted with the fine metallic particles of the station's hull. Exhausted, they returned to the apartment in silence. He had showered first, and this time he felt less surprised by her presence. Lyra had her own routine, her own methods of cleansing that were alien but elegant, and he realized that the lines of privacy that humans adhered to were entirely arbitrary in her culture. She spoke suddenly, a statement more than a question. Humans have a vulnerability in their form that seems pronounced. It is not weakness. It is a source of strength. He froze mid-bite of his nutrient bar. Strength? He asked, unsure how to respond. Yes, she said, her tone deliberate. Exposing oneself is a test. Many species hide this. Humans show it, yet continue to act, to endure, to survive. This form, though fragile, carries resilience that is unique. Her words resonated in a way he had never considered. On a battlefield, he had seen humans injured and exhausted, yet continuing to fight. He had witnessed their ingenuity, their unyielding determination to solve problems against impossible odds. Lyra was seeing that same tenacity now, not in acts of heroism or engineering feats, but simply in the bare human body vulnerable, but still enduring. He laughed softly, a sound of both amusement and realization. I never thought someone would analyze my vulnerability as a measure of strength. Lyra tilted her head again, and for a moment the shadows of the apartment softened around her form. Your species often underestimates itself. Humans possess endurance, creativity, and an ability to adapt that surpasses most others in this sector. Observing your form is merely a recognition of what your species often ignores in its self-assessment. From that moment, the tension between them shifted. It was no longer awkward or embarrassing, but a quiet acknowledgement of something deeper. Lyra's observation had stripped away his instinctive shame and replaced it with a strange confidence. The alien roommate, who had once been inscrutable, became, in subtle ways, a mirror reflecting human resilience back at him. Life on the station continued with its cycles of maintenance, orbital corrections, and communication relays. Yet there was a rhythm now, a tacit understanding between the two of them. When he returned from his shifts, Lyra often met him at the doorway, her eyes reflecting the starlight beyond the viewport. When he rested, she kept the space quiet, her movements deliberate but unobtrusive. She never commented on the moments of nudity again, and yet the memory of her gaze lingered not as embarrassment, but as affirmation. Weeks later, a situation arose that underscored this unspoken bond. A hull breach occurred in one of the storage compartments. Pressure dropped rapidly, alarms blared, and the entire section was in danger. He sprinted toward the control panel, but Lyra was already there, her limbs moving with precision beyond anything humanly possible. Together, they managed the situation, sealing the breach and stabilizing the compartment. Later, as they floated in zero gravity, the adrenaline still coursing through them, he looked at her. You didn't hesitate, he said, voice heavy with awe. Lyra's gaze was calm, her lips moving in a near smile. Hesitation is a human trait, yes. Yet you act despite the risk. I observed your species and knew that the form, the vulnerabilities, are irrelevant when the mind and spirit are resolute. It struck him then that the moment of nakedness had been a revelation, not of desire, but of understanding. Lyra saw the entirety of his being, human and fragile though it might be, and acknowledged the strength within. In that, he found not shame or embarrassment, but an affirmation that his species' persistence, ingenuity, and resilience were qualities that transcended superficial vulnerability. Months passed, and the station experienced routine fluctuations of supply runs, minor repairs, and the occasional visit from other interstellar travelers. Their coexistence became a model for human-alien collaboration. Other humans and aliens remarked on their compatibility, on the strange, almost symbiotic way they worked and lived together. Yet the foundation of it all remained that quiet, private moment of recognition, a moment where vulnerability was seen, measured, and respected. By the time he prepared to leave the station for a temporary mission on the outer rings, he felt a sense of gratitude. Lyra met him at the docking bay, her form illuminated by the soft light of distant stars. "Return safely," she said, her voice carrying the same precision as always, yet softened by something he could not name. "I will," he replied, feeling the same quiet strength she had seen long ago. "And thank you for everything." Lyra inclined her head, acknowledging the sentiment without unnecessary embellishment. As the shuttle departed, he looked back at the apartment they had shared, at the alien who had seen him fully and had judged not by human standards, but by principles of resilience and adaptation. The image lingered, a reminder that human strength was often invisible, yet undeniable. And somewhere, far beyond the orbit of their station, in the silent expanse of space, he understood that moments of vulnerability were not always weaknesses. Sometimes they were proof of endurance, of courage, and of a species' ability to thrive.